This community near Mount Shasta is so much stranger than anybody ever tells you. It's called Panther Meadows, and at first glance, it looks like a mountain paradise. Vans tucked into the trees, colorful tents scattered through the wildflower meadow, and people living simply, cooking over fires, meditating in the grass. It feels like a commune in harmony with nature, a place where everybody smiles at you and says, "The mountain called me here." But that's not the whole truth about this place, because the longer you stay, the more you realize that this isn't just a community of wanderers. And the closer that you get to Mount Shasta, the more you realize that not everything there is what it claims to be. If this is your first time here, consider subscribing to the channel. If you're a regular, please like the video as usual. If you really like today's story, consider giving it 3 hypes. And if you're watching on a podcast platform, please give us a 5-star rating. And consider watching this on a TV. It's meant for the big screen. I think it was summer 2023. I was hanging out with a really close friend of mine named Jimmy. I've known this guy since I was a little kid. I've known his entire family since I was a little kid. He was on furlough because he's a firefighter, and we were just barbecuing at his house. I knew that his family was going to come over to eat in a little bit, but I wasn't expecting them to bring such odd news. I was expecting a fun little family reunion. Like I said, I grew up with him. I basically lived at this kid's house. And when his mom and his dad came, I could tell that they were a little bit distraught right away. And like, yes, they were happy to see me. I hadn't seen them in a while, and we were catching up and having small talk, but I could tell that there was something on their minds. Like they had something that they wanted to present to Jimmy and I. And I was shooting looks at Jimmy as he was grilling some cheeseburgers, kind of trying to gauge if he was picking up the vibe that his parents were giving off. But I didn't want to press them about anything. Like I said, I hadn't seen them a while, and I was just excited to catch up. I didn't know if something happened in their life that was a sensitive subject that they didn't want to talk about and they were doing their best to hide it. But I didn't have to wait that long, because after we finished eating and we filled each other in about what had been going on recently in our lives, they did that classic, like, put both of their hands on the table, a light pause, and "We need to tell you guys something." And it wasn't just "we need to tell you guys something," it was like, "We need help with something." And Jimmy and I are both looking at his parents like, literally anything you need, like what could this possibly be? Because his parents absolutely have their lives together. They're not the types that would be in a pinch financially or with the law or anything like that. Like, they are absolute straight shooters. They have their life together. So whatever they're gonna ask for help with, we definitely got it. And his dad tries to start explaining it, but he gets frustrated and disgruntled right away. So clearly, whatever this subject is totally annoying him. And after his mom kind of beats around the bush for 3 or 4 sentences, she takes a pause and she says, "It's your brother Connor." And she's talking about Jimmy's younger brother, who's like, I don't know, 8 years younger than us maybe. I also grew up with him basically being my younger brother, so whatever Connor needs will help. And we don't know Connor to be a bad kid whatsoever, so there's no way it could be that bad. So as we brace for the news, we aren't sure if it's gonna be like he's not okay or he's sick or something bad happened, but we're intently listening as she's explaining to us the weird phase that Connor has entered in the past 6 months. So apparently, Connor found marijuana. He started smoking a little bit of weed, and at the time he was right around 18 years old, finishing up high school, a very impressionable young mind. And he started entering his little pothead skater boy phase. We didn't think anything of it. Everybody goes through it. Usually it lasts like 2-3 months. Then they either kick the habit or they just become a functional adult that uses it recreationally. It's not their entire personality. But Connor was at the phase where it was his entire personality. And we're expecting her to ask us to go talk to him, to maybe convince him to stop smoking so much, maybe get a job or something, maybe go to one of the colleges that you got accepted to. But she wasn't just asking that. Apparently he started saying things like, "It's calling to me. I can't be here. I'm not meant to be here. I have to go see it. I have to do my pilgrimage." And once she started saying things like that, like pilgrimage, we're like, what are you talking about? Why is he saying pilgrimage? Which is funny initially until his mom isn't laughing. And then she says, "He left 2 months ago. You've been really busy. We thought he was going to come back, but he hasn't. He apparently met some people online and has been living out of a van with complete strangers." And again, that's not absolutely unheard of for an 18-year-old that loves some Mary Jane. 3 months in a van, a little road trip, being shoulder to shoulder with a stranger, everybody's stinky and malnourished. That'll teach you to be an adult, and also teach you that being around your family is pretty sweet. Support systems are pretty nice. Otherwise you're living off Cheez-Its and having to sleep in Walmart parking lots. And we're trying to make light of the situation, like, we'll call him, we'll make him come back. But she's like, "No, I've tried to contact him. I've tried to convince him, at least visit home. But but he won't listen to me whatsoever. And then she breaks it to us. You guys have to go get him. He'll listen to you. And I know you would think that's a lot to ask of me maybe, but like I said, Connor was like my little brother, and I basically lived at these people's houses every single weekend for my entire childhood. So it definitely wasn't too much to ask for me to get on a plane with Jimmy, go find Connor, and get him on a plane back home. It's a weekend trip, it's a free trip somewhere, they were gonna pay for everything. It's not like I had to go into my pockets to do it. I just had to go get my little brother. So then of course the next question is, where is he? Do we even know where he is? Do we know where to start? And she goes, I know exactly where he is. He got to what was calling to him. And she says that he's in a small town in Northern California, which is completely across the country. I don't know where I was expecting him to be, but I wasn't expecting him to be at Mount Shasta. And that's when it started to get a little bit more serious to us, because we're like, wow, he got really far away very quickly. They really drove all the way to the West Coast, all the way north, and apparently he's living in some type of campground at the base of Mount Shasta. So we start looking it up a little bit, and it doesn't seem like it's a dangerous area. It definitely seems like a bit of a hippie town, but all in all, it looks absolutely beautiful there. So we're like, okay, when is our plane leaving? When do you need us to do it? And whatever a week or 10 days pass, whatever it is, we're on the plane, we're landing in Northern California, and we're on our drive to Mount Shasta. And again, I don't know what I was expecting, but I wasn't expecting to drive up to this town and see this mountain that looks like a legitimate pyramid just pointing in the sky, looking like it's radiating energy. Like driving up to that town, driving up to Mount Shasta, there's something different about it. We were even a little bit confused looking at it in the distance. It had this cloud around the tip of it that literally looked like a UFO was like landing on it. It was one of the most trippy things I've ever seen. And it's absolutely immense as you're approaching it. So as weird as this entire situation is, like we're going to get my friend's little brother, we're going to some random rural town in Northern California, and the landscapes here are just absolutely incredible. Nothing could have prepared us for what that town was actually like. So we had gotten into base contact with him. He still had an active phone. It would go in and out, like sometimes the text would be blue, sometimes they would be green, depending if maybe he was coming to town for a little bit of food, or if he was deep into the campgrounds where he didn't have service. But we had a bare minimum level of communication with him. And we didn't talk to him like, hey, we're coming to get you. We thought the better idea would be like, hey dude, we miss you, we're gonna come visit you. Because this kid is like 18 years old. He doesn't really know what's going on. He just did a van life thing. He's living in the woods in California. Maybe his older brother and his best friend being like, dude, what you got going on is awesome. Come show us around. And then when we're there, we could speak to him, and he has his guard down a little bit, and we could maybe convince him to come visit us back home. Like, yeah, it's so cool here, but dude, it's summertime back home. You're missing so much fun. That was our secret game plan. Get there, let him think that, yeah, what you got going here is awesome, but get him back to our hotel room so he could feel a hot shower, get him a couple like good warm meals, and be like, dude, the parties back home this summer are amazing. You're missing summertime shy, like come home for 2 weeks. You could always come back here, like maybe give him a little bit of FOMO to convince him to spend the summer with us. And then once he's back home, he's gonna remember the horrible van life experiences with the stinky strangers and the gas station food, and he's gonna be like, oh, I'm not going back to that. Once he feels the comfort of his own bed again, he's not gonna go sleep in a forest. Or at least that's what we thought. But we pull up into this town and he's half expecting us. Like he knows kind of when we're arriving, but he's being wishy-washy. He was basically like, if you're staying in town, I'll definitely run into you. Not giving us an exact location or not setting a direct itinerary with us. He was purposely avoiding it. But we're like, okay, he said that if we're in town and we're around, he'll find us. And we were instructed to buy our tickets back only when we found him and convinced him. Like we didn't buy round trip tickets. We were like, however long it takes to get him, immediately come home once you've secured the package. So we didn't want to pressure him. We didn't want to be like, no, meet up with us at this exact time, because he was on his hippy dippy stuff. So we're like, yeah, we'll be hanging out. Looks like there's a bookshop there. It looks like there's some cool cafes. We'll be floating around town around these hours. Come find us, dude. Like trying to match him where he's at. So we had to play it cool and we had to explore this town. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's nice. The food there was decent. The cafes were nice, pretty good coffee. But some of the shops were a little bit weird, and the people. I'm not being rude, I'm not being mean. I had never been to a place that was operating at such a spiritual level. Like every single person we ran into was deeply rooted in spirituality and was like ready to talk about it to anyone. And from being from a place that's like a big city, for you to have like a deep spiritual conversation about what you believe the origin of life is, or these deep concepts that you only have with your closest friend in the most isolated settings where you could actually be vulnerable and be like, this is how I see the world. When you go to a place where every single person is only talking about that all the time, it almost feels disingenuous. Because how do you trust a stranger so much to just start spilling your philosophy to them as they walked into your store? And there's nothing wrong with these people. It was just surprising how open they were to talk about their connection to this place. They could immediately spot that we were outsiders, that we didn't live there. We didn't even have to say it. They would immediately be like, how's your visit? And we'd be like, we just got here. It's pretty good. It's pretty beautiful. And they'd always be like, you could feel the mountain, can't you? When you're driving in that first time you see it, like they're talking intimately about Mount Shasta. And then they would immediately go into their origin story about how they ended up here. Like everybody in this place is a transplant. No one's from here. And after the third person said it, me and Jimmy were like, oh my God, there's some type of like psychosis going on here. Because each and every person said the line, Mount Shasta was calling to me. The same thing that Jimmy's mom said about Connor. It's calling to me. So there must be some online rabbit hole about the spirituality of Mount Shasta, and it like convinces people to make their pilgrimage from wherever they are to there, because they're all saying the same things. But the oddest thing about it was all of the people that we met, even though they were like deeply spiritual and the Mount Shasta was calling to all of them, each one of them had very different spiritualities. Like one of the dudes was only talking about the energy of the universe. Another one was only talking about some dude named Saint Germain. And he had a book of like a photo of Saint Germain. He looked remarkably like Jesus. Like I could tell it was kind of like the same setup there. And then another one was talking about ayahuasca and like spiritual journeys and things of that nature, like the hallucinogenics. So like these are three majorly different outlooks on spirituality, but they're all centered around Mount Shasta. And we found it kind of fascinating, but a little bit overwhelming that there was no surface level conversation. Like a good chit chat here and there is nice. Like some small talk with a stranger, just a little back and forth, not like, hey, what do you believe is going on in the universe? Like going directly there in every conversation, it's like, it's a little bit heavy. Like it's a bit exhausting, if anything. Like after hearing a guy talk for 15 minutes straight about how he aligns his vibrations with all of his friends all over the world, and the closer that they could get their frequency, the more that they could affect the positive outcomes of our world. I'm like, dude, that's cool. Like I'm happy you wake up with a mission. Like I appreciate you for fixing my frequencies and making the world a better place for me. But that's a 15 minutes I can't get back, brother. And I don't care how much you pitch it to me. I'm not going to do ayahuasca with a stranger that I just met today, no matter how much you try to sell it to me. We felt like we were fighting off spiritual bandits every place that we went. That place is wild. So once we realized that we weren't trying to get into these long-winded conversations with these locals, and it was better to lay low and just kind of walk around laps around the small downtownish area. Can't really call it downtown, but that's what I'm going to call it. I started to notice something very odd. There was a very constant color all over this place, and it was like a light purple. There would be random doors that were painted this specific light purple. There'd be people wearing light purple backpacks, light purple robes. There's bumper stickers on cars that would say like, I am, in purple font. And Jimmy and I start to notice it, and we're like, is that just like this town's colors? Like, do they have a sports team? Like, why is it this universal light purple all around here? But right as we were digging into that topic, we found what we were looking for. Connor pops around the corner with the biggest smile on his face, arms wide open. He's like, brothers. And I was immediately relieved because Connor looked fine. He didn't look strung out and dirty and all this stuff. He had light in his eyes, his skin looked good, he looked like he was well rested, he looked like he was well fed, like he had not been put through the ringer. We found a healthy little brother when we went to Mount Shasta. And he's pumped to see us, and he's showing us around, and he's telling us about the history of the place. He was definitely different than I remember him. I hadn't seen him in like 2 years, but it was 2 very formative years, and like I said, he was in a very specific phase. And he was telling us about all the crystal shops, Saint Germain, Mount Shasta, his pilgrimage, how he's found himself, all of the people that he's met. He's just talking and talking and talking. It's not like he was manic or anything. He was just out in the real world by himself for the first time, experiencing a very different life than he was used to. And he was very passionate about it. And he was with 2 people that he trusted and he missed. And he's like, this is everything that I've learned. I was a child 2 years ago, and now I'm a man, and I've found my purpose. And my purpose is to be here at Mount Shasta. Like that was the vibe that he was giving off. And immediately Jimmy and I were pretty relieved because we're like, okay, it's just his little brother. He's got some goofy stuff going on, but at least he's okay. Show us around, dude. This is awesome. We get to have a little trip and then we'll definitely be able to get him home. He wasn't in a bad spot. He definitely wasn't doing anything other than a little bit of weed. We felt like we walked into a pretty good situation that we could handle. And he's showing us around the town. He's telling us all this stuff that he learned. And then he's like, I gotta take you guys back to where I've been staying. It's absolutely awesome. And we're like, yeah, we'd like to see where you're staying so we can see where your stuff is so we can help you pack it up, but we're not gonna tell you that yet. And we walk around the corner where we have our rental car parked. And we parked just in a random spot. We didn't think about where we were parking. And then we see a sign that rings a bell to me that, oh, I have a question for you. What is this light purple and this I am everywhere? Because I saw a sign that said like the Temple of I am. And there was like a little private area that you can't really see into it. And that was the first time I got a little concerned about Connor. Because he felt some type of way about whatever that was. He was telling us about everything like an absolute open book and passionate. But when I was like, what is that? He was basically like, I don't really like them. Like, we don't talk about them around here. Like, we don't talk with them. He was basically like, those people have crazy ideas. Like, we don't mess with them. As if he's lived here his entire life and he has a vendetta with people that actually live here. But he was like, it's basically a cult. It's a fake religion. And we were like, okay, I mean, that answers that question. Seems like the entire town's in on it based on how much purple we saw, but okay, we're outnumbered. That's fine. Let's go ahead and find where you're staying. Can you take us there? And Connor's like, yes, I'm going to take you guys there, but I have to show you one thing first. He's like, I have to fill up my canteen. And he looked great. His clothes weren't that dirty or anything, but he did have a little bit of a traveler's look to him. And one accessory that was very much a traveler's accessory, he had like this big water bottle that had like a makeshift strap wrapping it around his body, kind of like a satchel. And we're like, that's totally fine. Like, where's the water shop? Where's the water fountain? He's like, no, we got to go to the spring. And I think he called it the McBride Spring, but I don't remember. And it was a little bit of a walk to get up there, but as we're going up to the spring, he's talking about how this water is like sacred, like it's the water of life. This is like the fountain of youth, like acting as if whatever water we were about to go collect was legitimate, like magic water. Like that's how he was speaking about it. And I'm all about natural spring water and all of the good minerals in there, crisp, cold, naturally filtered. I'm in on that, dude. We like that. But he was literally talking about it like it was a potion that was coming through the volcanic tubes of Mount Shasta from like a euphoric utopia well, and that it was going to make us feel so differently. But again, we're trying to get on his good side. We're not poking fun at what he's saying. We're just like, yeah, Connor, take us to the Fountain of Youth, dude. Let's go get some water. Let's fill up that canteen and then take us to your campsite so we could take your magic water and your butt home. And we get up this small hike. He's talking the entire time. He's passionate. He's having fun. And I got a really good laugh when I saw what the magic water was coming out of. Because I was expecting a waterfall, a natural spring. This water's just pouring out of a white PVC pipe sticking out of the mountainside. And I was like, dude, this is great. You're going to be so embarrassed like 4 years from now when you remember bringing us to this magic spring. And your brain fully develops and you're like, I can't believe I brought them to this PVC pipe and told them it was the Fountain of Youth. Like, I was very excited for him to reminisce on that in a few years and really soak in that embarrassment, but I wasn't going to rub it in the moment. And Jimmy and I both had some water bottles with us, so I might as well grab some magic water too, brother. Let's go. I'm trying to get these wrinkles to go away. Let's fix this hairline. So we fill it up. I'm not going to lie. It was fresh. I took a couple guzzles and I gave it a refill. It was good. But the next stop was where he was staying. And I know we're having a little bit of fun. I'm poking some fun and I'm making some jokes, but nothing was funny when we got to where he was living. At that exact moment, he was living at Panther Meadows, but he was with this group of people that he definitely didn't know all of them because it was a massive group of people. And they would all move around campsites in the area like every 2 or 3 days because like that was the limit that you could stay at a place per campsite. And I guess the main campsite at Twin Peaks had been closed recently due to violence. So they're staying at Panther Meadows and the place is absolutely packed. And I know Mount Shasta, like people go and hike it, like it's a destination place, I guess. But the people that were here weren't regular visitors. Like they weren't here to summit this. These people were living here and rotating campgrounds and they were all basically homeless. I guess you could say that they're travelers, but we realized very quickly that these people don't leave this town. They just go from campsite to campsite and they move their cluster of belongings maybe a mile at a time but they don't have a home. All they have is like army tents and tents, or like a school bus, or like a van that's souped up into like a van life van. But none of them have residences. None of them have jobs, and nothing about what they were doing made any sense. So it's one thing walking into a community like that and they live like a traveler hippie lifestyle where they're all in on it. They live in commune with nature. They try to live off the land. They try to not make any waste, and they all work together to survive, and they love living outdoors, and it's like this peace and love thing. That wasn't this. Maybe some of them were like that. At least that's what like Connor was buying into, and maybe like one or two of his friends. This was a mosh posh of very different people. You had some hippie types, but then you had people that were a part of the marijuana industry when it was super popular and making a lot of money, specifically in that area. But now, since it's been legalized, all of the money is taken out of the industry, and they don't have any other skills other than like trimming weed. So they're left with no job, no money, and they're stuck here because they've been living here for years. They don't know any other place. But then there seemed to be kind of like extremists. The people that were really into the ayahuasca, really into very long-term fasting, like they only eat during blueberry season in the summer, then outside of that they're fasting 30 days at a time, and they're doing like ritual ceremonies. We all learned this, by the way, within like 30 minutes of being there, because like I said, they get right into the meat and potatoes of who they are. So we'd get introduced to one person, we knew his life story and his entire beliefs within 10 minutes. And then we move on to the next person, a completely different set of beliefs and practices that they do. Then you'd come across like a random like 65-year-old couple that sold everything that they had, and they're like, Mount Shasta has been calling to us. But then there was like legitimate criminals, like people that were living off food stamps from the government, used to grow weed, were kind of like the criminal side of it, probably like the enforcers of that industry. And they're just like homeless, living off the government, and like willing to do violent stuff in the woods. Like there was a weird mixture, peace and love, then like potential violence, and no police anywhere, no rules, no nothing. And you'd think that I would be mostly worried about those people. But to be honest, that type is kind of predictable. Like, don't step on their toes, don't insult them, don't poke at their pride, and they probably won't mess with you. If they ask for a couple dollars, give it to them. You don't need that problem. The ones that bothered me the most were the slightly older couples that were there. The 65 plus, like just with their partner, acting really spacey, talking about how Mount Shasta was calling to them. Because when they started talking about why they were here and their belief structure, it actually scared me, because I was worried that that's what Connor was buying into. And I'm talking to this man and his wife, and the man is just bulgy-eyed staring at me, talking about how he could feel the earth spinning when he really thinks about it. And his wife is talking about reincarnation within 3 minutes of meeting her. And she's ranting and raving about how they're here to live in this very specific way, to get in touch with Mount Shasta on their final pilgrimage, and that the way that they live is going to allow them to elevate their consciousness to then be eligible into the utopia that's under Mount Shasta. And she starts telling me that I have been reincarnated over and over and over again for billions of years, but I finally made it to the point of enlightenment, and is like pointing at Mount Shasta. And she goes, I'm so happy my soul finally made it here, because I could feel my time coming, and this time I'm not coming back. So it wasn't really about what this woman was saying. Whatever this older woman believes with her husband, so be it. Whatever makes you feel better. This is how they're dealing with their mortality. Whatever helps her sleep better at night, I'm happy that she's found peace in her beliefs. The issue is that when Jimmy and I looked at Connor, he was nodding and smiling as if he was fully 100% on board with what she was saying. Like he was in agreement that what this woman was saying was factual, and that he believed the exact same thing. This is when the concern really started to build, because he was an impressionable teenager who had just been exposed to drugs. He's away from his parents and support system, and he's taking in beliefs like that and buying in fully to a woman that's saying, I'm not gonna come back this time, but also speaking about ascending and being here for the final pilgrimage. To me, that sounds like the start of a mass drinking of a Kool-Aid. It sounds like if everybody's on the same page here, why don't we just make the last pilgrimage tonight? And our 18-year-old little brother is like, yes, this is the real world. I'm gonna ascend into the utopia under Mount Shasta that was calling to me from across the country. Like I'm a part of this special thing. We can't allow that to happen. If all of these grown adults here want to drink the Kool-Aid and do whatever they want to do, that's totally fine. Our 18-year-old impressionable brother is not going to stay here. And we had to stop being so cool about it. We had to put a little bit more pressure onto him. So we pulled him away from that lovely elderly couple, and we told him that we wanted him to come with us back to our hotel that night. And like, dude, yeah, you could sleep on a bed, get a good shower. And we're pitching what we were trying to pitch to him this whole time. And he's not really being receptive. He's like, I like bathing in the lake. I like the food that we make here. And we weren't really breaking through to him. He was being very stubborn. And we didn't know if he was being like blissfully ignorant or actively trying to not have that conversation about leaving. So we tried the second half of our plan. We kind of isolated him, and we were behind one of the vans where we couldn't get into a deep spiritual talk. And we're like, dude, you're missing so much fun back in Summertime Shy. You should totally come back with us for like 2 weeks, dude. Spend a little bit of the summer with us, man. We miss you. And we did. That's not a lie. But we needed to get him out of this environment. And right when we started to say that is when he started to get a little bit defensive. And I'm not going to pretend like he stormed off or got mad, but I saw it in his face that he knew what we were doing, or at least he kind of knew, and he wanted to convert us to whatever he was on. And I could tell he wanted to strike some kind of deal, which was progress, because whatever deal that he wants to strike, we could negotiate it as long as we get him on a plane back home, or at least out of this campsite. We could like force him back home. And he kind of arrogantly was like, you guys just don't get it yet. You need to really feel it. You guys need to make your pilgrimage. I was so sick of the word pilgrimage at that point, by the way. But we're like, dude, what do you mean? We're here. There's Mount Shasta. Like, we're in your campsite. It's right there. Isn't this the pilgrimage? And he's like, no, you gotta hike up. You gotta get really close to it. Once you feel what it's like, close to the top, the energy that comes off of it, you'll know that we're right. You'll know that this is where we're meant to be. And Jimmy and I are like, okay, dude, like, let's go. Let's go on a hike. Let's get you away from these people. Let's get some better opinions in your ear. And then he's like, I can't come with you. You guys need to do it alone. It's your journey, not mine. If I'm there, I'll have influence on what you feel. I need you guys to feel it by yourself. So then we start negotiating because we don't mind taking a little hike up this mountain. Or like we leave for like 30, 40 minutes and we come back and we're like, yep, we totally felt it. Now come feel what a one-way ticket back to Chicago feels like. So we're negotiating. He's like, just go and make your pilgrimage. Take a picture at the top so you could prove to me that you made it up there. And then I'll go back to your hotel with you and we could spend some time there. But I know that you're not going to want to. And he had this like arrogant grin and like laugh to him. And Jimmy and I both knew 100% for sure we're not staying at this weird ass campsite with these half-baked criminals and this group of people that are humming and chanting and haven't eaten in 30 days. We know that we're going to want to go back to our hotel. So we shook on it. We're like, okay, we'll be back. Who knows how long it takes, but we'll see you in a little bit. Pack up a couple things for the night. Because we knew that he only had like a backpack and a couple belongings. So if he got most of it is fine. And Jimmy and I leave and we head in the direction that he tells us to head, which is literally towards Mount Shasta. And there's a couple signs. You just follow the trails. It's not very hard. And we're talking about like, how far are we going up this thing? Definitely not all the way to the top. It's going to take too long. Have no interest in that today. And we're trying to enjoy ourselves, and we're breaking down all the things that people said to us that day and what we should do next if he resists our help. Like, we have to get him out of this situation. And we're 20, 30, then 40 minutes into this hike, pretty far away from everybody. There's not many other people around. We're fairly isolated, but these trails are very wide. There's a lot of signage. This isn't a place where, at least to us, felt like it was easy to get lost. Like, it didn't feel like there was much danger there. And we were not going to go far enough to put us in any type of fatigue danger. It was beautiful out. There was no weather issues. This was one of those hikes where you don't really have any worry whatsoever. And we get to this absolutely gorgeous stretch of this trail as we're kind of like winding up the left side of Mount Shasta. And there's beautiful grass and wildflowers and a bunch of cedar trees all spread out. And we're chit-chatting. And I hear something just really, really delicately, almost floating through the wind. And I actually can't believe that I heard it because it was so faint. If anything, I didn't really hear it. I caught the lightest whisper that I totally could have ignored, but it slightly caught my attention. So I told Jimmy to be quiet, and I listened a little bit closer, and I heard it again. This is literally what it sounded like. Like, I'm talking the lightest little gasp, just like that, like somebody's faintest breath. as if they had like one breath left in their entire body, and that was them shouting. Like, it was literally almost nothing, but it was a human sound. It was totally coming from a person, or maybe like an injured deer trying to like squeak, but I knew it was something. So then we go completely quiet and we start to look around for it, and we don't hear it for like 5-10 seconds. Then we get a light, and at that point I knew that there was something here. We go around this one big oak tree. There's this little patch of grass, and we see a woman laying there, and she is clearly in need of help. As we're walking up to her, I'm trying to figure out what's wrong with her, because she looks to be late 20s, early 30s, like in great shape. She looks like a very healthy woman, but something about her almost like looks like a little deflated. So I'm looking for wounds, or if she's bleeding out, or if she's super sick. But as we're getting up to her, there's no signs of any major issue with her. She just seems to be in this slightly paralyzed state where she can't really move her mouth. Her jaw is pushed back like she doesn't even have the strength to close her mouth. Her arms are out at her sides like she's paralyzed, but her eyes are wide open. But again, she doesn't look really unhealthy. The only way I could explain it is, it was as if like the life was kind of being pulled from her. Almost like when the Dementors are like over Harry and they're inhaling like an invisible life force out of him. That's the only thing I could compare it to. It was as if her life was being drained from her for no apparent reason. And she was making those very light sounds, I could only assume to try to get our attention, or this is just her final moments. So we go around her. Like I said, Jimmy's a firefighter. He starts checking on her like he's working, and he can't figure out what's wrong with her. So we're just throwing ideas back and forth, like, is she on drugs? Is she dehydrated? Like, what is it? He's like, dude, I can't tell. It just seems like she's dying. There's no blunt force wound, there's no blood, there's no reason she should be like this. And as Jimmy is like kneeling next to her, that was the first time I realized how big she was. I don't know how else to say that. Jimmy's not a small guy, and he looked kind of small next to her. And I'm not a small guy either, and I get up close to her and I'm like, this woman is bigger than me. But that was a passing thought, because my number one priority is her health and safety. Who really cares how big she is? I just remember thinking it. So since we can't figure out what's wrong with her, I'm like, let me try to help. I take out my water bottle, put my hand behind her head. I like tilt her head up a little bit, trying not to hurt her. I don't know what's going on. And I just give her a little bit of water, like just to see if she'll drink it. And the first little splash, I could see it in her eyes that it was like, yes. So I gave another little splash, and her eyes were like, yes. So I gave like a good gulp, and her mouth closed, and she swallowed it. And it was the first time we saw her like really be able to move, like she actually swallowed the water. And I gave her another one, and it seemed to be very clearly helping. She was moving a little bit, keep giving her a little bit of water. I'm not trying to make her guzzle it. We don't need her choking or coughing up water, but it seemed like with each sip, it definitely helped a little. So then we're thinking it must be dehydration or something. She got lost, but we were right next to the trail. But this is the only thing that seems to be working. She's moving like a little bit. She's wiggling her toes. She's looking around. She's not really speaking, but I see her hand reaching for something. And in the grass next to her, there's like a crystal, like the ones that we saw at some of the shops in town. And then I was like, okay, she's probably on drugs and she was doing some type of ceremony with these crystals and she got dehydrated. Detective Doug, case closed. And I see her reaching for this crystal and she gets it in her hand. And then I see that she has a very similar one in her other hand. And she puts them together, and I could kind of see her like rubbing these crystals together, not talking, not sitting up, as if she used all of her strength to like get these crystals to touch each other. And I don't know if she was doing it to comfort herself or what, but it seemed to be helping her demeanor. When we found her, she seemed to be deflated. The water seemed to help, and she had a little bit more life in her eyes and her face, and the movement helped. She had these crystals, maybe with the comfort of them, she had a little bit of hope, but that's when something odd happened. Jimmy and I are both kneeling over this lady, and it was as if there was like a pulse. I don't know how else to say it. It was as if my vision got slightly distorted for a second, like there was a pulse. As if my field of vision just had a wave go through it. Just one wave, not repeated, not very noticeable. And I might have thought it didn't really happen, or it was a wave of vertigo that I was experiencing internally. But Jimmy looked at me at that exact same second like, did you feel that? Did you see that? And we both stood up and we took a step back, and we heard a voice coming from directly behind us. And in like a deep man's voice, we hear this: "Thank you so much for finding her." And we turn around to see a man that looks like either this woman's husband or this woman's brother. And he has a smile ear to ear and he looks like he's filled with gratitude. He doesn't look like he's on drugs. This guy looks like he has his life together. And he's walking towards us from like 30 feet away, and as he's getting closer, he has his hands up, kind of showing us like, I mean absolutely no harm. Thank you guys so much. I can't believe you found her. And asking us like, is she okay? Like, what state is she in? As he's getting closer. At this point, he's like running up to her. He's on his knees in front of her and he's like, I found you. He is so genuinely happy that he found this woman. And initially we're like, who are you? What are your intentions? Is she happy that you found her? Like, we don't really know. We're in the middle of nowhere. Everybody we've met up to this point is utterly bizarre. But we could tell by her facial expressions and her reaction to seeing him, she is elated. She looks like she is happy, safe, and she's been saved. Like, this is who she wanted to see. So that gives us comfort, like, oh, who is this to you? And this man stands up and turns towards us and he's like, I am her older brother. I cannot thank you guys enough. We had no idea where she was. And he's shaking our hands. He's putting his hands on our shoulder. Like, he's being so gracious. Like, you could tell when somebody's being fake gracious. This dude was so thankful that we found his sister. And he's asking us, like, what was she like when we found her? Was she in worse shape? What did you do? How did you help her? Just trying to get a little bit of information. And we're like, we found her literally 2 minutes ago, and we gave her a little bit of water. And that is it. And then you showed up. And he's going like, thank goodness you were carrying that water. I think you saved her. And that made me feel good. I think Jimmy was probably doing harder work than I was, like doing his best to check her vitals and try to ask her questions. Like, I just gave her a couple sips out of my water bottle. But I appreciate it. I'm happy to help. How are we getting her out of here? Because obviously you're not just going to throw her over your shoulder and walk her out of this place. So what's the game plan, guys? And we would never expect him to do it himself. We're here. We're not going to leave you guys high and dry. And he gets even more gracious. And he's like, if you guys could help me carry her, we could probably get this done in a quarter of the time. If we could give her a little bit of your water as we're going, if you don't mind, I think she's going to be totally okay. Are you guys willing to help? And we're like, absolutely, dude. I'm like, she could have my entire water. I don't care. Consider the water hers. And this guy takes off his backpack and he pulls out what seems to be some type of tarp. And we move her onto the tarp and we all grab a corner of it. He grabs 2 corners of it. And we all just help each other carry her back to the trail. And right when we get to the trail, we start turning back towards camp. And we were thinking about warning him, like, we probably don't want to go to Panther Meadows camp. Probably want to avoid that while she's in this state. Maybe get some real help. And this guy goes, oh, no. We're not going that way. Don't worry. And at that moment was the first time I realized something. I looked back at him and we were on flat ground on the trail and we were all standing up. And now I'm looking at him and he's going, we're going to go that way. And I realized that this dude's like 6'8". Like, when he had come over to us, he was kind of like hunching down, bending over, almost like coming down to our level and like being gracious. And then he was on his knees and hovering over her. Then we were moving her, putting her on the tarp. We were all picking her up, focusing on carrying her, trying to not slip. We don't want her to fall off the tarp. But this is the first time, like, we turn around and I'm facing this guy on level ground. I checked his feet to see if he was on a rock. And I'm like, whoa, this family's tall. Because we didn't see her stand up. I kind of got a gauge of how tall she was. I was like, all right, this lady's big. This dude was massive. And he's telling us that we are supposed to go the other way. But that's the way that we were hiking to get to the top of Mount Shasta. And we're a little bit confused initially. And then he clears it up by saying, that's where we set up camp. It's really close by. It's not all the way to the top. Don't worry, you're not going to be hiking all day. That's where we have all of our stuff. If you could help me get her to there, we're going to be totally fine. And that seemed cool to us. If they have a little camp set up where they have resources and they have their people, that's way better than us taking them back to Panther Meadows. We'll bring her there and some shaman will be like, just make sure she doesn't eat anything. She should start her fast if she's feeling bad. And then somebody will try to like pour ayahuasca down her mouth. So we're like, wherever you're staying, it's probably better. And then as we're walking, he again is being so gracious and so respectful. He's very well spoken. And then I have to bring it up. I'm like, dude, are you from Denmark or something? Did you play volleyball? Did you play basketball? And we have a good chuckle because we were all thinking it. Like I said, Jimmy and I are not small guys. This dude is massive. So I gotta know, were you like a semi-pro basketball player? Because I don't recognize you from the NBA. But what's going on here? And you guys know how people from Denmark, the Danes, are known for being just super tall. And he gives us a good chuckle and he's like, no, I was never much of an athlete. And I'm not from Denmark. Close though, I'm from Telos. And I never heard of that town or that specific place, but I'm sure it's from that region. Like, I hit the nail on the head. And we just spend the rest of this very short hike having really nice chats. Small talk. This dude knew the art of small talk. We weren't talking about deep spiritual things. He was just a pleasant guy that was grateful that we saved his sister. And we got to a point in the trail where we're like, okay, it starts to get steep here. And he's like, this is where we're going to be turning. We set up camp right next to this cliffside. We just got to follow around the cliffside for like a quarter mile and we'll be right there. And you guys are scot-free. I didn't love the idea of going off trail, but since there was a cliff face, we couldn't really get lost. Just go back the same way where there's a cliff face. It's not that much of a risk. And he said it was only a quarter mile, which in other cases, like going a quarter mile off trail, definitely not the best idea. But he reassured us, like, we will stay 1 foot away from this cliff face and I'll walk you back to trail if you really need it. He's like, I promise you guys will be safe. And we continue chatting, we continue our walk, and eventually we get to this point that's this nice clearing. There's oak trees every 20 or 30 feet, and the cliff face is immense to our left. It's a beautiful area. And he goes, let's take a break right here. We gently put his sister down, and he turns around, and again, he starts to thank us. And he tells us that right here is totally fine, and he'll take it from here. And we're looking around, and we don't see a campsite. But something about him, it doesn't feel sketchy. We weren't getting vibes from this guy that this was a bad situation. He seemed to be genuinely telling us, you did everything that you could do. Thank you so much. I'll take it from here. And he walked up to us and he shook our hands and he told us that he had a gift for us. And he reached into his pockets and he put a crystal in my left hand and a crystal in my right hand. And he walked up to Jimmy, did the same thing. Crystal in his left hand, crystal in his right hand. He took a step back and he said, if you ever need help, just touch those crystals together. Keep them separate otherwise. And me and Jimmy are both kind of like laughing, like, we thought you weren't one of them, but you just handed us some crystals that we use in a time of need. You're definitely our favorite of these people, but you're definitely one of them. And we kind of give him a laugh and we're like, and what do these do when we touch them together? And he said, consider it an IOU. Just don't touch them together unless you need help. And as I'm about to ask this guy where the campsite is, these people blip. Like, I'm talking, they are right in front of me. We are having a conversation. I'm holding these crystals in my hand, and then they're just gone. No poof, no smoke, no portal, no fading out of existence, no light flash, nothing whatsoever. I'm talking one frame, not even a blink, blip. They're there, then they're not. And not only were they just gone, it was as if what I was looking at, things shifted. It wasn't like the pulse from earlier. It was like the leaves that were on the ground and kind of like the shadows from the trees. As they blipped, things just changed. The shadows were in a slightly different spot. Some of the leaves that were pressed up against the cliffside had blown in the wind to the right, but I didn't see them blow in the wind. It was like snap. Shadows moved, leaves moved, they're gone. And it was so abrasive, the random change. Jimmy and I both felt. Like, I don't know how to explain it. We snapped into it. It was as if things shifted. These people disappeared, and Jimmy and I were on our butts, like our knees buckled. The only thing I could compare it to is when you feel a light earthquake, if you've ever experienced it. All of a sudden, things just shift, and your balance feels off for a split second until you realize what's going on. And it takes your butt hitting the ground to gather your bearings. And we look at each other, no idea what just happened. And I'm not going to sugarcoat it. We panicked. And we shoved those crystals in our pockets, put our right hand on the cliffside, and started walking back to the trail in silence. And we realized that Connor was right. There's something going on here. It was very easy to get back to the trail, but that didn't change how horribly shocked we were. We didn't even know if what we experienced really happened. We didn't know if somebody figured out how to slip something into our waters or were hallucinating, having some type of bonding hallucination at Mount Shasta. But I felt completely sober. He felt completely sober. But who knows? Maybe somebody like pressed a tab of acid into the back of my neck and I was sweating and now I'm hallucinating in the middle of the wilderness and we're both seeing massive blonde and blue eyes Danish people in the middle of Northern California. We didn't have any time to digest what happened. The only thing that we knew for sure was that we don't care about negotiating with Connor. We're gonna go get our little brother and I'll put him in a full Nelson if I have to get him out of here. Because whatever is happening around this Mount Shasta is freaky and bizarre. And whatever we just witnessed, these pleasant giants, was just as bad as the ragtag group of people that were at his campsite. So we hustle back to Panther Meadows as quickly as we possibly can. We didn't get that far, so we were back fairly quickly. And Connor's there waiting for us. And I could see on his face that he's like, that was awesome, wasn't it? But he has no idea what we just witnessed. So we walk up to him and the first thing that he says is, You felt it, right? Like as if he's pumped for us, like we just made our pilgrimage. And Jimmy and I are like, we need to talk to you. Like we're not about to do this back and forth. We're not about to wait for one of these people to enter our conversation and have a 15-minute spiritual endeavor. Get over here. And we pull him behind one of the vans where we have a fraction of privacy. And we start to tell him our concerns about this place, about how we don't really want him out here with all of these strangers. And that's when he starts to pull back a little bit. He doesn't want to hear that. He has found his people here. He's found his calling to Mount Shasta. He doesn't want to hear anything that goes against his worldview in this moment. And Jimmy and I are both beating around the bush about what really freaked us out. Because these people here, as odd as they are, they didn't just blip out of existence. And we start telling him, you have to come back to the hotel with us right now. And then he brings up our negotiation. He's like, well, let me see the picture. Show me that you made it to the top. That was the deal. And we're like, we don't have a picture, dude. He's like, okay, so you didn't hold up your part of the deal. I'm not going anywhere. So we have no choice but to tell him about what just happened. And even though everybody here is talking about all of these crazy things, there's no way he's gonna believe this. He's gonna think we're trying to scare him because we're trying to get him home. But we don't really have any other choice. We're like, we tried to go to the top. We found somebody on the way, she needed help, and we witnessed something really freaky. And that got his attention. He stopped withdrawing from the conversation. He stopped being so defensive. He's like, what do you mean you found somebody? And we go through the entire story with him. We tell him we heard that faint gasp. We found this woman that seemed to be clinging onto life. She was very tall. She was blonde. She had blue eyes. We gave her some water that we had gotten from that PVC pipe magic well. And we helped carry her with her brother to a cliffside of Mount Shasta. And they disappeared. We gave him all the details like I just gave you. I just wanted to wrap it up. But as we're going through this story, he's getting more and more interested. But not in a super enthusiastic way, like a calm way, as if we were changing the way he was thinking about something. And as we're telling him about what's happening, I'm like, this could have been like a total lie, and he's so impressionable. He's like eating this up. But we weren't lying. We were telling him what just happened and our concerns about this area. And he's being quiet, very attentive, like he's trying to get every single detail that he possibly can. And as Jimmy's finishing up the story, I like grab his wrist and I'm like, please keep this between us, because we don't want everybody here knowing that we just went through something like this, because we're gonna have to recite this story 40 times to everybody that wants to hear it. And I could tell that he was downloading all the details, most likely to share it with everybody so he could be like, this was my moment. This is my connection with Mount Shasta. To be one of these people, because everybody here had a story. And he nods his head and he's like, I'm not gonna tell anybody, don't worry about it. And we tell him we're really shaken up, like, please, can you just come with us? We wanna spend some time with you while you're here, but we just don't wanna be here, just do it for us. And he's like, okay, fine, let me get my things. You guys can hang out in the van, give me 5 minutes. So we go into this dirty, stinky van, and we're just sitting there trying to decompress from what just happened, so excited that he agreed to leave with us. 5 minutes pass, 10 minutes pass, but he probably had stuff spread out. We're giving him the benefit of the doubt. Jimmy and I are sitting there in complete silence, and then I look in the van, in the front seat, and I see a bag that I distinctly remember. It was the backpack that Connor was wearing when we saw him in town, and that had most of his stuff in it. So what was he gathering? This was the van that he was staying in, and that's his stuff. So where did he go? And I hit Jimmy, I point at it, and I'm like, is that Connor's stuff? He's like, it sure is, dude. And simultaneously, we get to our feet and we shuffle out of this cluttered van back into Panther Meadows, and Connor did not listen to me. The story that we had told him was spreading like wildfire, because we see people talking, reciting things. We even hear little portions of the story being told loudly and enthusiastically, people looking over at us, and Connor in the distance talking to somebody that seems to be one of the top shamans here. And people start gathering around us, like a half circle around this van, talking and looking, and they seem so excited. And I see the guy that Connor was talking to say something to somebody who is one of his messengers or minions or followers, whatever you want to call it, and he runs off towards town. And then that dude goes into like his army tent setup for a couple minutes as Connor starts walking back towards us. I'm looking at Connor with a big smile on his face. He's excited. Now I'm 100% positive that every single person in this entire camp has heard the story, and it is some type of big deal to them. And right over Connor's shoulder as he's approaching, I see the shaman dude emerge from his tent. And Connor comes back to us and we're like, dude, you did the exact thing we didn't want you to do. We don't want to answer any questions. We don't want to have to tell it again. And he's like, you don't even understand what you experienced. You guys don't get it. Everything's different now. Everybody's looking at us, but nobody's speaking to us. And we see the dude emerge from his little tent, wearing an outfit that I'm sure that he has been waiting to wear, because he's wearing it proudly. It's like this light purple robe, and he's marching over to us with a big smile. And the crowd parts for him, and he comes right up to us, and he's like congratulating us. Not even just congratulating us, but thanking us, as if what just happened to us was an achievement. And everybody's looking to see what is about to happen next, and he turns around and he starts talking to the group like he has a speech prepared. And he's saying things like, today is the day. They've made contact with us today. This is the invitation that we've been waiting for, that we've all been preparing for. Today we make the last pilgrimage. Today is the day that we elevate. And everybody gets so excited. I'm talking about like hugging each other, embracing, as if today is the best day of their lives. I'm like, oh my God, are they gonna start passing around Kool-Aid? What did we just trigger here? And I'm not talking just like one sect of these people, not just like the fasters or not just the hippies, not the energy people, not the old weed growers. Every single person, no matter what the base of their belief system was, they were celebrating the same thing, as if all of their differences faded based on what just happened. And then he's announcing to all of them something that I guess was controversial to the group. And he's like, I know you guys have your feelings about the church. And you know that I've been a part of them for a long time, but I've also been a part of your community for a long time. I've invited my friends, and I've let them know. And there was a little bit of disgruntled chatter, but he cleared it up and he goes, they're not gonna get in your way. If you're ready, you will be welcomed in. But they've been waiting for this opportunity as long as you've been waiting for. And I love them, so please, no matter all of your differences, no matter how you feel about them, allow them to come with us on this final pilgrimage. I'm like, what politics did we just enter? And I look over to see where he sent his minion off running. And there's a group of like 25 people coming our direction, all wearing light purple. And then I'm thinking back at the town and the IM and the Saint Germain, and how this dude apparently is double dipping in this campsite community. And then also with IM, that apparently there's a little bit of beef here. And I'm trying to process all this information in this exact moment. Like, I don't have any background on what's going on, but I could tell that he's playing the middleman between these people and the people in purple that are approaching. And even though people are a little disgruntled, he brings the energy back up by reiterating the story and what we're about to go do, and that we should embrace them like they're your brothers and sisters, because this world doesn't matter anymore. And that lit the place on fire. Talk about cheers and hugs, and these people in purple that I guess they had beef before, they're hugging strangers and embracing like this is a absolute celebration. And Jimmy and I are standing there like, Connor, what did you do? We have this van behind us and people circling us all around like we cannot get out of this semicircle. And they're acting like we are in New York City on New Year's Eve and the ball just dropped. Embracing each other like this is brotherhood, friendship, love, peace, and excitement. And we're waiting for them all to calm down because we don't know what the next step here is. And after all of the hugs and the embraces stop, all of the eyes come back to Jimmy and I. And this dude in purple turns around and he goes, lead the way, boys. And we go, what? What are you talking about, light purple guy? Lead the way to where? What did Connor tell you? That we found the real fountain of youth and you guys have been drinking out of a PVC pipe? What miscommunication happened here where there's 100 people that apparently hated each other yesterday but are now best friends looking to us for guidance? What could he have possibly said for you to think that we're in charge now? I don't have words other than what, but Jimmy manages to say, what are you expecting us to do right now? Connor, what did you tell them? And this man is like playing the room. He does like a hearty laugh and turns around and he goes, they don't even know the blessing that they just witnessed. They don't know the secret that they just revealed. They don't know how good their existence is about to get. They don't know that they just brought us the greatest gift of all. This dude is preaching, but also kind of slighting us, saying that like we have no idea what's going on, which was true, but the way that he was saying it was that we were like so naive spiritually and this is our first day here. And we couldn't possibly understand the magnitude of the gift that we received. And he looks back to us and he goes, you're going to show us where the gate is. You're gonna show us where the door is. And he's saying all different versions of gate, door, entrance, as if we're supposed to understand what he means. And then he finally says, where they brought you, take us to where they brought you. And then we realize who they're talking about. They're talking about the extremely tall, blonde Danish people. And somehow that story was twisted through Connor to make it seem as if they brought us to some epic entrance. An entrance to what? I have no idea. But they seem to be very excited and very focused on finding out where that entrance was. And we have to awkwardly announce to this entire group, we didn't tell Connor we found an entrance. We told him we found an injured woman and we helped her and we carried her to a cliffside. The people disappeared. I don't know how that got lost in translation till we found a gate to somewhere or an entrance to heaven or whatever you guys think this is. And then I regretted it immediately because all of the joy in everybody's eyes, all of the spirituality and love, and I keep my frequencies high to better the earth. Frequencies went down a little bit and I saw hatred and disgust in all of these people's eyes. Like they went from I'm about nature and taking care of my fellow man to if you don't show me where this entrance is, nobody's gonna hear your screams in these woods. There wasn't one empathetic eye in the entire crowd when we gave pushback. And I was expecting a level of trying to convince us to tell more information that we didn't have. But the man turned around and said, you're gonna show us where you found her, and you're gonna show us where they took you. And then I saw how they really felt about us. Because he said, we've all been living this life for years, some people decades, some people an entire lifetime. And we weren't given the gift that you just got on day one, and you're not even grateful for it. They felt like we didn't deserve it. Whatever they thought we got, we didn't deserve it. And I could tell that everybody here felt entitled to it. And it wasn't just disgust or hatred in their eyes. There was a level of envy. I don't know what for, but I knew that he meant it when he said, this campsite is ours. No one's coming here to help you, so you should help us. So now we're walking back up the same trail that we took earlier, surrounded by the biggest freaks we've ever met. And all types of freaks. This was a motley crew of freaks. People wearing purple wings, people dressed as Native Americans that weren't Native American, light purple shamans, old marijuana growers that were wearing jeans and a white tank top. All sorts of people marching with us to find the gift that we found earlier. But they're not really letting us lead the way. They have us completely circled. They're all around us. They're all acting very excited. Everyone's chit-chatting. We're going in the direction of the entrance, the gate. Jimmy and I are like, dude, what are we gonna do when there's no entrance? How are these people gonna react? We're completely surrounded by them. Connor's literally one of them. He is as excited as all of them. And we're walking up this trail and we're like, what are we supposed to do? And we're 10 minutes into this hike and the light purple shaman goes, are we close to where you found them? Make sure you don't miss it. Make sure you remember correctly. And we know where we found her. We were coming up on it. So we're like about 100 more feet than off the trail to the left. And people start getting more excited, like we feel their energy. But I'm listening to what they're saying to each other. And this is the most bizarre thing. It's all peace and love, but they're whispering about the other people that are there. The people that were at the Panther Meadows are like pointing at the people with the purple wings from the I Am temple. And they're saying things like, they're not getting in. They don't live like it. Like there's like a little competition going. And the people from the I Am temple look at the people from the Panther Meadows, like I could see in their eyes that they look down at them like you guys live outside, ew. Like there's a little bit of an uppityness to it, but they're all equally excited for an entrance that doesn't exist. So there's all of these light slights going on, and they're all always checking on me and Jimmy, like hyper fixated, like we can't get out of here, we're the key to this. And we finally pull up to the area where we found her, and he makes everybody wait, and he has us come to the center of the group, and he goes, show us exactly. And we walk up around the tree where we found this lady laying, and we're like, look, like literally right here. And in the grass, you could see the indent of where she was laying. Like if somebody was laying down in long grass for like an hour, it's all pressed down and smushed. Like she was laying right here. This is where we found her. And all of these people start circling the area, and some people are crying, and they're getting on their hands and knees, and they're reaching their hand out and touching the blades of grass and like holding it close to them as if they're worshiping it. They're worshiping the indent in the grass where this lady was laying. All of them were doing it. They were acting as if this was a sacred site. I'm talking whimpers and squeaks of excitement coming from grown adults about pushed down grass. The one thing that was a little bit odd was that inside of this rather large indent of grass, there were wildflowers growing out of it that weren't crushed. And I didn't inspect where she was laying after we moved her, but they were plucking these fresh wildflowers and saying things like, it grew, like she did this. This is proof that she was here. And that irked me a little bit in the moment because the wildflowers looked brand new. They didn't look crushed. But I can't let them know that. I'm in a dire situation. It freaked me out a bit, but them blipping away freaked me out a little bit too. But my train of thought gets stopped when they ask me, where did you see him? Where was he? And I know they're talking about the 6'8" Dane, so I just point at the ground right next to where I'm standing, a couple feet away from this indent in the grass. It's actually very interesting because I see his footprints in the mud, and everybody loses it, and they're all going around it and like touching the ridge of the indent. They're like, he was right here. They're worshiping the ground that this man stood on. And I'm looking at the foot marks, and I'm looking at people's feet standing next to it, and I'm like, dude, those feet are big. And they're all noticing it. These are massive footprints. And people are asking, how tall was he? What did he look like? Describe him to me. And Jimmy and I are like, they were blonde, they had blue eyes. He was probably 6'8", 6'9". We don't know what else to say. There weren't any like very distinguishing features. They just looked like normal Caucasian people. They were just kind of tall. That was the only thing that stood out. And they're losing their minds. I'm thinking they're gonna start sniffing these footprints in the dirt, try to get a whiff of this guy's cologne. And then it shifts to, okay, where did they take you next? All the wildflowers are connected. One of the people are carving out the dude's footprints, like carving the piece of ground out of the dirt to take it home, as if this is like a Bigfoot sighting and this is proof. Like it's just a big sneaker footprint. So we tell them we moved her onto a tarp and we started carrying her back to the trail. Like, we'll take you exactly where they took us. And the energy was even higher because now there's proof. There's a large footprint. There's an indent in the grass. And now this is where they led us. It almost felt like we were cosplaying a biblical event to them. Like, that's how much they were fawning over this story. So we get back to the trail and we take them exactly where they took us. We get to the cliff face and we tell them we have to go off trail now. We just follow the cliff face about a quarter mile and you'll probably be able to see the footprints there too. And we're trying to not overhype it because there is no entrance. It was a cliff face. They blipped away, we fell on our butts, freaked out, and ran back to the trail. These people are going to be let down. And we're trying to explain to them, we are not going to some magical door. We'll take you to where they took us, so you're not mad at us, but please manage your expectations, people. But there was no management in sight. Everybody is walking along this cliff face. They're all touching the wall. They're looking around all whimsically. They are acting as if they are entering heaven's gates. That is the only way I could explain it. And Jimmy and I are shaking in our boots because anybody that's operating at this level with this excitement and not hearing what people are saying that goes against what they think they're about to walk into is not a good emotional state to be in. Especially when we're outnumbered 100 to 2 and we're getting closer and closer to it, and I'm seeing our footprints in the dirt because we don't know exactly where it was. It was a random part of a clearing. There was no symbols on the cliff face. I'm pretty much relying on when these big footprints stop, and then they stop. And we could see where we were standing, the little indent in the dirt where she was laid on the tarp and his big feet. And we take a big breath and we're like, this is where it happened. And I'm trying to manage expectations. I'm like, this is where they disappeared and we didn't see where they went. Everybody, we don't know where they went. Footprints, cliff wall, forest. They blipped, we fell on our butts, my tailbone still hurts, we ran, scared like little dogs, and you guys blew it out of proportion. So how disappointed are you going to be? And everybody is searching the area. Like this is the biggest opportunity of their lives. They're rubbing their hands on the cliff face. We hear people saying like, we have to find it. We're right here. It has to be right here. They're doing prayers in front of trees. People are carving out his footprints in the ground here as well, being absolute weirdos. And we're standing there watching this Easter egg hunt going on around us with fully grown adults. And it goes on for like 20, 30 minutes. And then we hear cries and shouting and pouting and the tones changing, people giving up. And then words like liar, fraud, they're being thrown around us, directed towards Jimmy and I. Even though they were worshiping the indent in the grass and the wildflowers and the footprints in the mud. We weren't liars then, we're liars now. saying things like they're trying to hide it from us. They're not even worthy of it. Why did they get to see the entrance? We could make them tell us. And that's when the hive mind starts. That's when people start working off of each other, and they're all justifying in their group their willingness to do something that is not socially acceptable or just in any way. But since there's nobody around and the majority of the people want something, you could tell they're willing to do anything for it. And Jimmy and I find ourselves with our backs to each other as everybody's starting to make a semicircle, ending at the cliff wall. And the man in the yellow is like pointing at the cliff, and he's like, what did he do to the cliff to open it? Show us what he did. Show us where they went. He's interrogating us in the middle of the woods, halfway up Mount Shasta, about what these people showed us, and we are trying to explain to them. We told Connor the whole story. I don't know what he told you. We said we got here and they disappeared, and the crowd did not like that. There was a mob mentality going on, and we knew for sure that we were not safe. The man in purple is openly interrogating us and not even giving us a chance to reply. And we see people starting to pick up rocks. And Jimmy and I are like, are we about to be stoned? And one person throws a handful of pebbles, pelts us in the legs, one hits me in the cheek. Once the first person throws it, two more people throw it. And the guy that's interrogating us is working off of it. He's asking questions in between the throws, as if that one hurt enough, maybe we'll tell them more. We have no idea what to do. There's too many people here. If we try to run, they might start hitting us. If we stay here, at least we have a little bit of time to think, a little bit of time to explain ourselves. The rocks get bigger, hitting the kneecap, hitting the back of the head. You feel the welt start swelling, and that's when you start pleading. Guys, we told you everything. We'll help you look for it. We don't even know what we're looking for. You haven't told us anything. And the rocks get bigger, and that's when Connor snaps out of it. He was watching initially. Comes to the center and he starts pleading for us, but the crowd has lost it. It doesn't matter that he's coming to our rescue and he's vouching for us. He's saying things like, they told me everything. They didn't know anything about this place. Why would they hide something? They have no reason to lie. He gets hit with one. The rocks get bigger and we don't know what to do. The interrogation gets louder. We go to our knees. We have our hands on the side of our head. The rocks keep coming. The interrogation keeps going. We have no answers left for these people. And there's nothing that we could do, and there's nobody here to help. And there's no entrance and there's no gate for them. It's only their anger being taken out on us. And we're frantically chatting in our small group, what are we gonna do? And none of us want to take our hands away from our head, and we don't have any other options. And as we're nuzzling into each other, I feel a sharp point on my left thigh, but it couldn't be one of the rocks that they were throwing because Jimmy's body was right there. They can't throw it through him. And I remember the crystals, and I put my hand to my left pocket, I put my hand to my right pocket, and they're both there, and I'm getting pelted. I have to turn my face away from the crowd, and I'm taking them in the back of the head, and I take one crystal out, and I take the other crystal out, and I stand up, and I hold them up to the crowd, and I say, there's one more thing. I was lying. They told us to touch these together. I probably shouldn't have stood up while people were still throwing, because I caught the biggest one yet to the back of the head, and it was like a flash knockdown, and I was on my hands and knees. I didn't even remember falling. I remember saying that we lied, and all of a sudden I was pretty much face down, and the only option that I had was to touch these together. So I put these two crystals together, and I'm looking at the ground, basically screaming at myself to run. But for some reason, I'm rubbing crystals together. But everybody went silent, as if they were waiting to see what happened with these. They're the type to fall for this. Like, hey guys, here's the crystal keys to open the gate. And they're like, okay, we'll stop slinging rocks at you. Maybe this'll work. So I had a moment to think. And the only thing I could think about was, we have to run and get to the edge of this group and fight through it. Because if we stand in the middle, we're getting hit from every direction. If we at least get to the edge, they're throwing the rocks at the other people too. And as I'm about to make a break for it, I hear a voice behind me. And it wasn't Jimmy's. It wasn't the interrogator. It wasn't Connor. And the voice said, I didn't think you were going to use them this soon. You boys really know how to find trouble. And I roll to my back and I see this 6'8" Thane with the biggest smile on his face. He doesn't seem worried whatsoever. And I'm pretty happy to see him for slightly selfish reasons. I could go, that's him. And all of these people that were about to stone me to death could ask him where the gate is. But he doesn't have a care in the world. He walks up, he helps me to my feet, he taps the other two guys on the back and they stand up. Connor's looking at him with the biggest smile on his face, like in absolute awe. And then I look towards the interrogator who hasn't said anything yet, and I see the entire crowd, and they're not looking at him at all. They're looking in all various directions, angry, disturbed, with handfuls of rocks, but they're not moving. Everybody is completely silent and completely still. And I look at the entire group, a full 360. The interrogator looks like he's in the middle of a sentence. The angry mob looks as if you pressed pause. They're motionless, like they are stuck in time. I look back at this guy and I realize what happened when they blipped earlier. I was just like one of them, and the reason the shadows shifted and the leaves moved was because time had passed. We were just paused then, and these people are paused now. Jimmy, me, or Connor, none of us had any words. We didn't have any questions. We didn't even understand what we were experiencing. But this 6'8" dude with the biggest smile and the most gracious attitude pats us on the back and basically just says, "Follow me, let's get out of here." Like whatever dire situation that you were just in, it's over. Come on, let's go on a leisurely walk. That was the energy. Like, do not worry about this, because he was doing it. Whatever was happening with this mob, he is the one that paused it. So we just follow him. And he's as normal as he was when we were helping him out with his sister. Small talk, chatting, kind of making fun of us for using one of the crystals so quick. And we don't even really know what to say. I'm half concussed. We're all licking our wounds like we took some shots out there. And then he starts speaking to Connor, because Connor's looking at him like this dude is Jesus, and is as if he knew exactly what we wanted him to say. He's telling Connor, you can't be around these people. You can't be in a place like this. You won't get anywhere in life surrounding yourself with people like this. Look at how they acted the moment that they thought they found a door in. That's who they really are. They're pretending, but you saw what was really inside of them. They didn't deserve to find the gate, and you need to be home with your family. That's what really makes a good person. And he walked us all the way back to the Panther Meadows campsite. It was completely empty. He had Connor gather his things, and once he had all of his stuff and it was clear that he was ready to say goodbye, he gave us a warning. It was kind of towards Connor, but it was for all of us. He said, now you guys can never come back here, because they're gonna think you got in, and they'll always believe that you know where the gate is. And then he looks at Jimmy and I, and he says with a smile on his face, you know exactly what they're about to go through. And then the dude blips. Like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. We really hope you enjoyed this story. I want to take a moment to just say thank you to everybody in the audience and everybody that tunes in every week. It really means a lot to us, and we really hope you consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already. Please hit the notification bell if you want to come to the live streams that we do every week. We give away a ton of merchandise because we appreciate you guys so much. Please like the video and hype the video 3 times if you haven't already. It helps more than you could possibly imagine. And please consider joining the exclusive membership. The support from paid subscribers gives us stability and helps us continue making these videos for you on a weekly basis. So if you have the means for it, it would mean the world to us. Thank you again. We have a bunch of stories coming up, and we're super excited to continue growing the channel and continue growing this community. You guys are the absolute best, and we'll see you next week. If this is your first time here, you have an entire channel to binge. So enjoy yourself. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd like to personally recommend this one.